So, hello, Keijo. First, I want to know a little bit about your background when it comes to like heavier music. So, do you recall when you heard metal music or some type of like extreme music for the first time?
I mean, extreme, I'm not sure if Sex Pistol counts, but back in the 77, that was extreme. So it goes all the way back to the punk rock. And then I got into heavy metal when Iron Maiden came out. Kind of missed Black Sabbath until like mid 80s. We were not circulating those albums, but I'd say that Pistols and some other like punk bands, Finnish Razzia, Lama, they were really important in the beginning, and then Iron Maiden, Halloween, and then finally Metallica, Slayer, obviously. Like those kind of changed the game totally, and then into death metal, where it's like I think that's where my domain is actually. Grindcore as well, of course. Like, but I didn't really catch Napalm Death when it came out. I catch them after Terrorizer, so I needed like more tight gateway drug, which was Terrorizer. But
So, what was like in more extreme music that sort of caught your attention and made you fall in love with it? Do you know?
I think the energy and whole overall feeling, and I think okay, I'm really privileged to be born on year 70 because I grew up in my teenage years during the 80s when everything just was invented and came out. So bands like DRI and Slayer already mentioned, Death, Sepultura, Bolt Roller, Carcass. So all of those kind of showed up during the time when I was really kind of getting into music and when we also started to play. So it was kind of non-existent things which just suddenly showed up. And I'm not saying that it's harder nowadays. Actually, it's easier because now the young people can find everything from the internet. We were mostly relying on record stores and our friends' records, and we were like taping each other's music.
So you were doing like tape trading back in the days?
It wasn't tape trading really. We were mostly like everyone were short in money as teenagers. So we went to record store together with friends, and everyone bought 2 records, and that resulted as 6 records for each person, with 3 people.
Okay.
That was kind of the routine we had. Like when we got our allowances, we went to record store, bought vinyls, and then taped them to each other.
So, what made you form a band and become a musician? Were those the bands that you already mentioned before that sort of got you the spark to become a musician, or how did that happen for you?
I didn't really form a band, but really good friends of mine, Mikko, he's now Bad Jesus Experience, and Doomi did also Maleficix, but Mikko and Doomi and Jani and Ismo had a band called Desecrator.
Yeah.
And I was really good friends with them, and I was like usually hang out in the rehearsal place drinking beers in the weekend, and then they realized that Doomi was trying to do singing with bass, but instead of that he asked if I wanted to like try out, and here I am. So I kind of joined accidentally, not accidentally, but I kind of was there anyway, and took the microphone and got the guitar as well right away, but microphone was the very first thing, obviously.
So was like Desecrator your first ever band?
Yeah, and that turned into Vomitorism.
Yeah.
So when we found out that there was like 5 Desecrators, I took like dictionary and tried to find really difficult word like there won't be any Vomitorism, but then there's vomitory in Sweden.
So quite close, but
jokes on me. But they're good friends. They're a really good band too.
So, what made you become a vocalist? And were there like some vocalists that you sort of like looked up to when you started? Were you like playing some certain covers, for example, or how did it happen?
Desecrator was playing originals from the beginning, I think. And basically all of us were sharing the music taste. Well, Ismo he was a bit older and was more into like metal, and he was the like, let's say, traditional metal. And he was the lead guitarist too. So he was more into like guitar solos, but Mikko was maybe more into hardcore, and Doomi was into death metal, and and thrash metal. But all of us liked Slayer and Metallica and then Sepultura. And since I couldn't sing, that was the funny thing. It wasn't really thrash metal. It was already death metal, but I could have done different ways to sing, but I was kind of inexperienced, and it felt most natural to start growling low. And that's how I like wanted to go more into not even death, but like lower. And I think that when we went further, LT Petro was probably my biggest influence. May he rest in peace. Turned out to be a friend later on, but like when Entomb came out, I was like, okay, this is kind of how I already did sound a bit like, but I maybe was going more into that way in the beginning.
So were you like rehearsing a lot with the voice in the early days? Were you like losing the voice, or were you like a natural thing for you that you didn't actually lose voice and it came out like very naturally for you?
I did have some trouble in the beginning because obviously there was no technique at all. I was just like yelling as loud as possible, and then until it distorted. And I couldn't like be careful with my throat in the beginning. And I even had like some infections. And a doctor told me like half a year when I had started singing or growling, had like infection in my, what is that, the channel going to lungs, what is lung pipe infection, something, keuhkoputken tulehdus.
Yeah.
I got that, and the doctor saw that you shouldn't do this is bad for you. But I didn't listen to him, luckily. So basically learned to watch, to not to hurt myself, and kind of got the level into more comfortable level, and to be able to maintain the voice. And I don't remember really losing the voice that much. My biggest problems were on some tours when I was still smoking cigarettes.
Okay, so that was the worst for you.
That was the worst thing on the first tour with Malevolent Creation, who were just in Finland.
Yep, they were.
I met Phil 2 days ago. It was really good to see him. And again, that's another influence. Brett was another legend who's unfortunately gone, but he was really good with his voice. But yeah, on that tour, halfway through, I had been smoking too much cigarettes and lost my high-pitched voices, because in Rotten Sound I started to incorporate also higher screams, but I all started from death metal, like lower ones. Let's say Bolt Thrower was also another influence to me.
So how long time did it take for you to figure out the right technique for the screaming so that you wouldn't lose your voice? Did it take like a long time for you? Do you remember?
Maybe it was always smoking related when I had trouble.
Okay.
And smoking was also causing trouble with like breathing technique, because I'm basically doing it different way than vocal coaches tell you to do. Like quite often, people who sing and scream, they don't really scream very loud because they want to have the same level for everything.
Yeah.
But instead of that, I'm doing pretty loud all the time. And it took me a while to find a comfortable level and also to be happy with the tone, without like having, how to say, not the teenage breakups in the voice, you know, things. And to have like solid distortion, but it's kind of more desperate as well. And I've heard that it's called, is it fry screaming or something?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's what like I was referred to that in some article, which a Nasum drummer Anders said to me a couple of months ago. But that's definitely the way I do Rotten Sound. But I think that the death metal screams are not really just fry. It's a little bit more. It's like deeper, more full body thing.
It is. So when it comes to like screaming and growling, were you first sort of like mimicking your idols and like finding your own way how to do things, or how did you develop the voice that you have today?
I think it started with trying to sound like the idols first. I couldn't do Tom Araya. I wanted to.
No wonder.
But I still won't. No one. I mean, only few people on this planet can do something similar.
Yeah.
He's unique. But like, and also didn't want to go because I really went more into death metal. So I didn't even when at first it was like I couldn't sing, but I never really wanted to do the thrash metal thing, like to actually sing notes that distinguish it. But then with Medea, there's some parts when I was kind of feeding the notes, sort of, and that way finding my own voice, and maybe those things kind of helped me to actually start to sound more like myself. And yeah, we're coming to Medea here because that band really developed me as a vocalist a lot. First of all, they were really good at like coaching me to pronounce.
I was actually
better.
going to ask you next about articulation, that how important it is for you, because we are both Finns, and obviously you tour with Rotten Sound on an international level, so how important that is for you that you articulate like everything correctly.
I mean, I'm speaking this broken vampire English anyway, I don't care about that.
Well, we both do.
but whenever I scream or sing, I try to, and especially in studio obviously, I try to find sort of the right way to pronounce whatever it is. It's probably in between UK and American actually. I'd like to say it's more UK, but I think that we are so affected by American English that
we are.
We can't really avoid it. Someone told me that I sometimes sound like Scottish or even Irish.
Okay.
I don't know about that, but in screaming, like I said, Medea really helped me. Laura is amazing in English because that's where Laura is from UK, and having the like perfect kind of Cambridge English, and also really good ear in singing and like perfect pitch control, really good vocalist. And then Sambe, the other guitarist, or well, I don't even want to say the other guitarist, Medea, Samuli. He was also very uptight about pronouncing right because he came from nu metal side where they had the American idols behind and like international idols, and they wanted to sound like international band, and those helped me. And I really, when I listen to Cycles or Exit nowadays, I can notice that I wasn't so well pronounced at the time.
Okay.
I think I will never be sort of perfect.
Well, we are not like native speakers. So.
Yeah, but I don't cringe so much with new records. But like, it's kind of funny to listen to Cycles, for instance, because that's where the one thing that when you scream, it's really harder to have the more because English is way less hard than Finnish.
Yeah,
it's more rounded, and when you scream hard, it's hard to do that rounded thing. And even some English-speaking native singers, I'm noticing that they're sometimes kind of going into more harsh way to pronounce things. Not all of them, but sometimes I notice that okay, other people do struggle with that. And I was trying to explain that to Sampe, but he was like, no, you can do this better. And we were spending endless times. Like, I remember like one of my favorite moments in Abandoned No recordings was when we recorded a line which started with word two.
Okay.
But I was saying two.
Okay.
And then he ended up like, hey, why don't you just sing vittu? And then they cut the beginning from it. And that's in the record actually.
So for those who don't know, vittu means fuck, so.
Yeah, well, the Finnish version of that.
I want to ask you a bit about touring. So what kind of like memories do you have when it comes to the first proper tours, when you had to do like show after show after show? Were you ready as a vocalist to do them, or is it more like a party memory from those tours? Or
that's like just mentioned Malevolent Creation, just told Phil like, and be laughing with Mika that there was a couple of things we didn't really think about, like none of us remembered going to sleep most of the night. Nights, like we were in a night
that's
line,
very good for a vocalist.
All the alcohol. I didn't care about that. Okay, the energy next day is tough, but then you can drink more. And I was still in my 30s, so it was easier. And actually, I'm not gonna bring the age card. You can do that if you want to, but it's not really healthy. and I think that it was more smoking related to lose the high pitched voices for a week or so. So there was a point in the tour when I was struggling every night to sing everything as it's recorded, but I didn't really care and just went for it and did what I could do. And on that tour, towards the end, it started to feel easier. So maybe that tour actually helped to find a way to avoid to maybe not smoking that much, and also not just smoking, but to the vocals so that I could do all the voices I wanted to do. Another like way more traumatic thing was that when we did the Nasum tour, I lost my high-pitched voices second to last show. Kind of embarrassing to say, like, let's say we have the natural products before taking the ferry from Germany to Denmark, and he couldn't bring them in, so we got to use them on the last stop with another person on the bus who wasn't in Nasum. I have to say that. I don't want to reveal the names, of course, because it's still not legal everywhere. And like I was still smoking weed at the time, and we ended up like not having papers. We smoked it with aluminium can. And that destroyed everything from high pitch. And you know how Nasum sounds, how Mietka sounded.
Yep.
And when I woke up the next day, I go, oh shit, I can't really sing. And we also had the last show, which was filmed for the Nasum DVD. So we wanted to record that. So we altered the set in Malmö to be able to do a little bit more low pitched, and then did the normal longer set in Stockholm as the very last show of Nasum Farewell Tour. And a friend of mine brought me snake bite medicine, kyypakkaus.
Okay.
To have some cortisone, and I could kind of do it as good as possible, so that I didn't have to like be really sorry about losing my voice for very stupid reason. So don't do that. And actually, I don't smoke weed anymore, so I'm not doing that. So, but I mean, yeah, fun times, but stupidity is very expensive sometimes. But that time, like the last show, the movie about it, and the show, it still went fine. So because of the snake bite medicine.
So are there like some specific foods or drinks that you wouldn't rather have before the show, that you have felt that they affect your singing somehow, or on the opposite side, something that helps you? Obviously, you said that medicine helps, but that's like a different thing.
I don't really take that. That's the first time and last time I've taken it. No, I don't really think so. Beer on stage is horrible. Makes
it
burp.
dries you
It
up.
doesn't work. It just burps, and it's like, no. I can do it, but it's not my favorite. If I choose to have alcoholic beverage on stage, it's usually white wine soda, so something light.
Yeah.
That's like, red wine wouldn't really work. I'm kind of wondering like how Ville Valo did that over the years, but that was Ville's thing. But no, I don't really think that I don't mind spicy food. I can take coffee and whatever. So no.
Okay.
No really no-goes. One thing is though, like hard liquor, if you take straight whiskey before singing. This sounds like very alcohol abuse and whatever abuse related interview, but it's a fact. I'm not spitting in the glass nowadays, so it's fine. But hard liquor is kind of making you numb. And if you feel sore throat on the last show of the tour, you can do that, but you're going to pay the price the next day.
Yeah.
Because it's like numbing, so you don't feel how the singing feels. And like I said, hurting the throat is the worst thing. If you can't speak properly when you come off stage, then you have done something wrong. That's how I noticed. So I'm usually walking to the merchandise table, and I want to like be there and be able to speak, and the next day as well, obviously.
But how is it with merch table? Because there's like usually quite loud music. Have you learned a way to speak in a way that you don't hurt your voice? It doesn't mean like affect you anyhow.
Okay, if there's other band playing, then you have sign language like medium or large.
Yeah.
You don't have to shout everything, and usually there's enough information on the table about the actual merchandise. So basically, talking loud is something that this is something I never thought before, but maybe it helped that when I was in Nokia, I used to do software process lectures around the world for that unit where I was working.
Okay.
So I was speaking in front of big audiences, and sometimes there was no microphone, so I had to actually learn to speak loud.
That helps.
And that helps to speak loud, obviously. So, but it's basically the way I sing is the same thing.
Yeah.
But maybe you can speak wrong as well, as many public speakers probably know, who do it all the time.
Well, obviously you've been in a lot of different bands, like SARS, Morbid Evils, Rotten Sound, like Medea, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And you've done albums with most of them. Are there like some specific albums that you have felt that you have taken like a big step forward as a singer? Some albums that comes into your mind. You've experienced yourself in a new way, or...
I think that in the very beginning, the first Vomitorism demo was a step up from Desecrator. Like I did 2 demos, one with Desecrator and then Vomitorism, and then went into more deep tone for the EP and first album for Vomitorism. So those kind of helped. But then somehow, maybe I got a bit carried away with life and moved to Tampere, started to work for the multinational company I already mentioned, and wasn't really practicing that much. And I noticed that there was a bit of, like when I look at the discography, Under Pressure, Drain and Still Psycho even don't really sound as good as I would like them to sound vocal-wise. But then on Murderworks, we started to practice more together, and then I got my sit together and could do it better. Okay. It also helped that there was finally a producer who knew Grindcore with Miesko, so that was like helping. And then when you go forward, in the discography, let me think. Medea's Cult and Abandon All are, like I told, they are not just pronunciation, but they were development steps, and it really helped me.
Yeah, I can actually agree when listening to those albums.
That I really pushed myself forward there, and that has affected all the other vocals. And then, since each band is still a bit different, it's the same guy, but with Morbid Evils I'm having a bit different tone. Like it's more doomy and more like desperate. And that has been interesting also to play guitar and sing all the time. I did that with Vomitorism for like maybe 2 or 3 shows for a while, but stopped that when we got the lead guitarist in the band. So maybe playing guitar brought me more rhythm and also control, so I didn't overdo so much. What else should I pick up? Pre-advertisement. I do obviously like the latest Rotten Sound album. We wanted to do desperate high-pitched vocals, but then Goatburner, which is coming next week.
Yeah.
On that one, I'm doing the full range of everything. So I'm kind of found the way to be as strong in different pitched voices, and maybe that's something that I've been looking for, because earlier on I was way louder with highs, and now I kind of got the low vocals a little bit higher and highs a little bit lower to have more control there.
So as you already now mentioned, Fatal will be released next week from Goatburner. So are there like any new things that you tried on that album, and how like important it has been for you that you have had like all these different outlets during your career to sort of develop more as a vocalist? So you have like basically ground to experiment more.
Well, I mean, it's very important to have different ways to express myself. I do love doing vocals with Rotten Sound, but then even like listening and playing with just one type of music and one type of band it's kind of one-dimensional for me, because I have nowadays more time in my hands and I do want to do different kind of music. So the current combo with Age of War is not really active, but doing the Doom with Morbid Evils, and then death metal, which is kind of in between Rotten Sound and Morbid Evils. So having those three in the mix are all kind of supporting each other. And it's not just the actual vocal performance, but how to write lyrics. They're all different, and how to also write music, which I don't do with Rotten Sound anymore, but with other bands, to express the musical side as well. So I think I would be happy if Rotten Sound would be doing enough shows to tour with us, and that would be great. But then I think that we wouldn't exist if we did 200 shows a year. So it feels like a good balance now that I can like spend time with others too.
So I want to ask you a bit about like doing vocals live, and quite a lot of vocalists are like copying the microphone when they are performing. So what's your opinion about that? Do you copy it yourself?
Sometimes, but I really avoid it nowadays. Being studio sound technician, I've been recording that too, and it works. It's a different kind of tone, and if you see me copying, it means that I'm kind of tired, it's too hot and something. It's kind of way to cheat.
Okay.
Although there are bands, like some grindcore bands, who base their tone on that. But I'm more into just trying to avoid it and sing straight to the microphone and without copying. Maybe half copying sometimes to boost some choruses a little bit, but those sound more subconscious nowadays, so I try to avoid it. Because, I mean, it's really doing pretty bad phase problems when the sound is bouncing back from your hand to the microphone capsule, and it's also going straight to the microphone. So it just doesn't sound so good outside, at least in my way to sing.
So what's your opinion about like bands using backing tracks and using like vocal backing tracks? Would you see yourself doing it with your bands?
I wouldn't do that, but first of all, I'm against click to start with, so it would be pretty hard to do it. Rotten Sound is using click in the studio, but we definitely don't use click on stage. It's organic, so you really can't even do that. And I don't think that grindcore or death metal or doom metal should be played. That's just my opinion. I'm not like judging anyone, but should be played with a click track, so that you're always on perfect time, which would enable the possibility to have the backing track. And then speaking about the backing tracks, knowing some bands who have really big kind of vocal backup, and good singers, great singers do backing tracks. And I mean, I'm not against it, but like it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
Actually, the coolest backing track I've heard was Decapitated,
Okay.
but not vocals. Vogue was having another guitar as backing track, because now the new albums have dual guitar written songs, so he could play everything as on record, and because he's also one of my favorite guitarists in the world. So he was so tight that it sounded like he's playing both guitars almost at the same time.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I know. When I saw them at Äänivalli, I noticed that. I thought, oh, okay, there's another guitar there, but no guitarist. Unless there was someone behind the curtain, but no. That was his guitar, played in studio.
So, what were your parents' reactions when they heard you first time screaming your lungs out?
Well, my dad wasn't around. He unfortunately passed before, but my mom was wondering, like, what's going on here? Like, do you really think that this could do
Work.
something?
Go to Nokia.
Yeah, well, but then later on, before my mom passed, she came to the shows and she was like, understand, okay, this is cool, and seeing how the crowd reacted. And it's probably when you don't, if you haven't been in extreme metal, so it's a unique experience how people, you actually feel the happiness of the energy release.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, happiness. Like not the first thing to mention, but very often it's so. That people are kind of, a good friend of mine from here, Mehis in Vaasa, just told me once that when we played in Club 25, the legendary old club in here, that's it's the coolest thing to see a rotten sound after hard day at work, a hard week at work. It's just like you get like this, or whatever extreme, but he mentioned us because he was at the show, and like getting this energy straight to your face, and you feel like kind of, what is that? What's the word? To be washed from my inside, like to be purified, cleansed.
Yeah.
And it's just like, when I see bands which are like extreme bands, I'm just smiling most of the time. Like, this is so cool.
Yeah. I have the same feeling. I have the same feeling.
Yeah.
So last question, any kind of like advice that you would like to give to a young metal vocalist who is just about to start their journey?
Oh, well, the thing I'm always saying is that find your own style, whatever it is, and it's not a bad thing to mimic your heroes. I could imagine, like, if I was starting now, I'd love to sing like Corey Taylor. He's superb vocalist, for an instance, and many others. But then eventually finding your own voice, because we all sound unique. No person on this planet sounds the same as another person, which is, it's really cool when you hear some, oh, okay, it's at the gates, that's easy, but then you notice the singer, and when you find a way to find your own voice, that's important. And then, most importantly, what's your throat? And don't smoke, it kills you too.
Hey, thanks a lot for doing this.
You're welcome, thank you. This is fun.